Hello everyone, this is your host SB4 here, and welcome back to Season 2 of the RePHIL Studio. This podcast is primarily focused on the Bang Dream franchise, giving you the best weekly updates on the series and the game as a whole, as well as being able to share experiences from many prominent community members. So if you like what you hear, like what you see, feel free to give a subscribe and join to support the RePHIL Studio. So this is the first episode of Season 2. I'm really looking forward to giving more content in this RePHIL Studio, in this podcast. Special guest will be the White Whale, who will be joining us very shortly in the studio. But for now, everyone, refill to 99 because we have our first weekly news of the series. So let's hit it away. So, weekly news. So this section of the podcast, I will be mostly talking about some upcoming news that, for the franchise as a whole, as well as the game. So you all are up to date in terms of what to expect and what's to come for Bang Dream in the franchise as well as in the game. I want to first give a shout out to SUILEN. Congratulations on the new single, Domination to World. So if you haven't listened to that yet, that's already released. Domination to World single features that song as well as Shakunetsu Bonfire. So if you haven't listened to that single, go ahead and purchase it, support SUILEN. And actually, at the time of this podcast being released, there's only going to be a few more days before Morfonica's single comes out as well, Harmony Day. It's coming out on October 6th in the JP time, and the single features Harmony Day, Sonorous, and Faithful. So another great couple of songs, and again, big congratulations to Morfonica on their single. So again, a couple of song updates to start off this weekly news corner. Now, in the JP version of the game, so I'll call this JPdori from now on, currently the Hello Happy World Halloween limited event is going on. Let's scream. So I believe once the podcast is released, the DreamFest is already passed, featuring Remy and Masking. But again, for those in the EN server, do look forward to seeing that DreamFest sometime next year. So if you're looking forward to them, feel free to start saving up. And of course, the Hello Happy World Halloween events, all these cards are limited, so you can see the some of these beautiful arts with Kokoro, Kanan, and the rest of Hello Happy World. So definitely that's something to keep in mind if you're a big Hello Happy World fan. And this is also the first time that it is using a new format called Medley Live. So Medley Live is basically a very interesting format where it is all free live, so you're not really, pubbing or playing with other people. It's basically you're going to be playing 3 different songs all at once, and you're going to use 3 different teams. So in order to actually score well in Medley Live, you need to have 15 really good cards. Now, this is a cool Hello Happy World event, so if you want to score well, you need to have 15 cards, or 3 of each card that are cool, and there's quite a few cool Hello Happy World cards out there. So if you are looking into tiering for that event, you got to really stock up on those cool Hello Happy World cards if you really want to be efficient and score well. And again, this is a free live, so you're not really playing with other people, or you're trying to, work together in multi-live like many of the other lives that we are familiar with. So it's interesting that JPdori is starting to move towards a direction where you're going to be working by yourself. The recent Team Live, which was in the previous event, and as well as this Medley Live, these don't really involve you working together with other people. It really involves yourself and seeing how well you can do. So it's going to be really interesting. I'm not sure how ready people are in terms of tiering for such events. It's going to be a little bit different. So, but definitely look forward to that. It's going to be a little bit of a metagame shift. So definitely kind of see how that goes. those possibly looking forward to Medley Live, I think it's a pretty interesting format, but not being able to do it with other people is obviously a bit of a bummer. But that's just how it is. More details about Medley Live will come out once we kind of learn a bit more about it and get things translated, and perhaps when it gets into the game. So in ENdori, so keep that in mind. Now the other thing I want to talk about is the ENdori. So at the time of this recording, and by the time this RePHIL Studio episode is out, the Have a Good Halloween event featuring Roka, Maski, Kasumi, Mocha, and someone else from the top of my head, I think it's Maya. It's still going on, and it's a bit of a shock because the event was supposed to be for 6 days. Now, the Bushiroad EN just decided, or Bangdri EN, they decided to last minute, a day and a half before the event was supposed to end, they threw a bombshell and said that they're extending it by another 6 days. So this event ends up being a 12-day event that is very similar to last year's Poppin' Party Halloween event, which was also 12 days long. Now, there was of course a lot of criticism and a lot of backlash with the fact that they suddenly changed this super last minute. But personally, I see this as a problem, not necessarily because of events are short or events are long. I don't think it's that black and white. I think there's an underlying problem with global Bang Dream as a whole and how it's being run as a company. So hear me out here. A couple months ago, again, they sent us a survey to ask whether or not we wanted events to be shorter. And, from a business perspective, I think it makes sense for events to be shorter because if events are shorter, you get more events pumping through, events come faster, which means that, if let's say Gacha doesn't last as long, people will have to spend more possibly to be able to get the stars that they want or the characters that they want. And of course, tiering might become possibly more expensive because it becomes more of a sprint rather than a marathon. So resources might end up becoming more beneficial, and thus if it gets more active, this will hopefully promote the game and make it so that the game lasts longer. But they promised that starting in September of 2021 that events will start to get shorter, and they actually actively said that they're going to do what they do to make sure that they'll work hard to make sure the resources are ready so that they can keep up with this tighter schedule, which apparently, again, more people requested. There was maybe a vocal minority, and that's all they needed, a vocal minority to say, hey, why don't we make events shorter for them to actually pull the trigger. To be honest, I feel that Bushiroad EN might have already wanted to do this, but just wanted at least some people to be on board with it to make a final decision to actually make events shorter. But this brings a problem. And the problem is that it hasn't even been a month since they announced that events are going to be shorter, and then they had to double the length of an event. That poses a problem. That poses a problem for many reasons. One, it does mess up quite a bit in terms of the people who are tiering for this event. Now, at the end of the day, though, it really affects 100 people at most, right? Because those who are going for top 100 or top 10 or higher, they have to might spend a bit more time, spend a bit more resources just to get their goals. I think for Bushiroad, that's definitely a sacrifice they're willing to make. Like, it's just, a couple hundred people compared to a wider audience, right? But the underlying problem of this is that, again, it's only been a month. It hasn't even been a month that they promised that shorter events are going to happen, and they suddenly say that we don't have enough resources, so we have to extend the time of an event just so that I have more time to build on the resources, build on the assets. That's a problem. That's a really big problem. The fact that they don't have enough resources or enough manpower to keep up with this schedule that they presumably want to follow through perhaps their own business means, I'm worried about ENdori's future. I really am. The fact that they couldn't keep a promise to maintain a particular schedule after just 1 month because apparently they just don't have the assets. And again, you could make guesses or theories on whether or not this is actually true or not, whether or not they have the resources, or maybe they're just doing this as a business ploy. Regardless, this gives a lot of uncertainty about ENdori's future. I personally think it really messes up a lot of people in terms of, I guess in a tiering perspective, because the fact that now this already sets a precedent, that the fact that you don't know if ENdori is just going to suddenly say, hey, we need to extend an event just because we have to, because you want to follow a schedule to make 6-day events, and now we can't even keep up to it, even though not everyone wanted it anyway. It's just so weird. It sets a really weird precedent with tiering, because you now never know, for those who are tiering in a current event, you never know if ENdori will suddenly say, hey, we're going to extend it for a few days. Because now this sets a precedent. We never know if that's going to ever happen again, on whether or not ENdori is going to say, hey, we're going to just extend this event. And for those looking into, planning out your schedule for future tiering, this also messes you up, right? Because of this current event, it gets extended by an extra week. So all our events are being pushed back by a week. What's going on there, right? It's just a really big mess. And again, people think of this problem as people are complaining about shorter events, and now people are complaining about longer events. I don't think that's the main issue now. The main issue is that ENdori has suddenly showed that they are being very inconsistent, and there might be some underlying problems within the organization that I'm not sure means that whether or not the game can actually be sustainable. If they're already having issues keeping up with the assets or keeping up with the timelines that they wanted to implement, that is saying a lot about the game. So, it makes me wonder about ENdori's future for sure. I don't want to sound depressing or pessimistic on the first episode, but I just wanted to hear what you guys think. Like, I know maybe I could be overthinking things, like it could be a stretch, but again, I just don't think it's a very good look that they promised the players that we're going to make things shorter for events, because apparently a minority of people wanted to see shorter events to keep up with JPdori's times, but they can't even keep up with that demand after not even a month has passed. That says a lot more to, I think, to the organization and the game as a whole, rather than just the fact that people are complaining for shorter versus longer events. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. If you think my opinion or my rationale is logical, or maybe I'm pulling some needles out of a stack of hay about this current issue. I'd love to hear your thoughts and know what you think about this extension of the ENdori timelines. But yeah, that will be the news outlet, or the weekly news corner for this episode. So again, weekly news, every podcast, at the start of every podcast. Next week, we'll be talking about a little bit more new news, like, for instance, the upcoming Band Story 3 in ENdori, as well as the new event in JP. So look forward to that. With that, let's hop onto the studio and welcome our special guest. Want to support the RePHIL studio? Check out our website. Links in the description below. You can learn more about the podcast as a whole, as well as send feedback to give positive and constructive criticism about the podcast. You can also suggest a special guest to be featured for the podcast as well. There's also ways to join the Filler Nation and supporting the RePHIL studio, either through a subscription on Twitch or joining the YouTube membership down below. Reminder that all Filler Nation members can listen to the podcast recordings live in the Discord server. So check out the website, and we appreciate your support. All right, everyone, welcome back to the studio. Let's refill to 99, and I have the honor and pleasure to have a special guest join this RePHIL studio for our first episode of Season 2. Introducing the White Whale, and I'll give a brief intro of what he's done. He has achieved quite a few notable achievements in Bang Dream, notably two top 10 titles in Backstage 2 and Flowery June Bride, as well as 10 top 10 plus song titles, including 4 T1s in song tiering. White Whale, it is a great pleasure to have you on the studio, and hope to learn quite a lot from you today.
Likewise, good to be here.
Anything else you want to add to your intro that I just gave you?
Well, not much, I guess. I like rhythm games. As you can tell, my main is Bang Dream, of course. I also play some other arcade games and Archaea, as well as Project Sakai.
Why don't we actually go into a bit more about that? How did you first get into rhythm games? Like, what was the first? What was your first exposure to rhythm games?
Let's see. Well, if we were to go all the way back,
Mhm.
I guess the first one would be when I was a tiny kid walking in the shopping mall and I saw some guy shredding on Guitar Hero. I think this was back in like 2005 or 2006. So, yeah, a long time ago. But I haven't actually touched a rhythm game until probably does Club Penguin count?
Okay.
I remember there was a little dance game, like a DDR clone that you could play on Club Penguin, but I guess you could count that as my first rhythm game.
Mm.
My first serious rhythm game though would be Demo in 2013, so right when I started high school. And I pretty
Mm.
much played it every day at lunch all the way until I graduated, and here I am.
And yeah, 8 years later, all that really serious rhythm game experience takes you to quite a few places. And again, I've seen you sort of shred a whole bunch of different rhythm games. On your Twitter. All the IRL games as well that you play. It's pretty crazy how skillful you are. But that's a lot of rhythm game exposure. What about Bang Dream? How did you first get into Bang Dream?
I started getting into Bang Dream because I was modding over demo actually. So in 2017 or so, I got a new phone that didn't really like slide inputs. I think I complained about that one on Pubcode a lot of times
Mm-hmm.
back then.
Mm-hmm.
So pretty much I gave up on playing rhythm games on my phone for a year or so, and I got into
Mm-hmm.
OSU instead on my PC. And
Mm.
through that, I found some user-created maps for songs from Bang Dream. So I decided to check out the game again on my phone. And well, I was still playing on that phone with the sliding glitch. So it was very, very frustrating, but it did get me, I guess, more of a sense for how slides felt in Bandery.
I see. So again, you are when you first played, it was on the phone. So what you were still playing, I guess, on index fingers on phone or
Yes, mainly
okay,
index. Sometimes
okay.
thumbs if I'm on the bus or something.
Okay, I see. And then you then I think since then you kind of upgraded, right? Of course, when,
Oh, yes.
staying on that phone probably was not the way to get all these these song titles and just how good you are in the game. For those who aren't familiar of just how good the White Whale is in Bang Dream, he's got a full game all perfect, and you have that as your pin post on Twitter, where every single song, every single difficulty, you have an AP, which is all perfect, getting nothing but perfects in the game. So when you first got that, how did you feel about getting that achievement?
Mostly a quiet relief, I think, surprisingly. The adrenaline, I think, more or less peaked when I did Rokuchonen, which was in December of 2019.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, I had to play the other 28s very, very, very tediously because at that time I was on a better phone, but still an Android phone, so it wasn't as
Mm-hmm.
consistent as an iPad. So I think I probably played Sugar Song at least 200 times. More of a quiet relief than anything.
Yeah. I'm imagine there hasn't been any song that has topped some of these really difficult songs. So I'm sure you're still maintaining that full AP in the game, right?
Yes, in EN at least. I'm not sure about my ability to do it on JP, but hopefully I'll learn Setsuna Trip by the time it comes out there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we'll see when the time comes. For the time being, you have some amazing, amazing achievement getting all perfect in the entire game. You mentioned quite a few songs, right? You mentioned stuff like Roku Chonen. You mentioned Sugar Song. Um, what can you maybe in your opinion, what would you think would be the most difficult songs you had when it came to trying to AP that particular song?
On EN, I think it would definitely be Sugar Song. No
Mm-hmm.
matter what device you're using, so like regardless of input latency or whatever, the flicks at the end are really going to screw you over.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Like like you think that Sugar Song is even harder than maybe some of the like the long like full version of songs as well.
I'd say personally yes, but a lot of people I know have trouble with Firebird Full. So like
Mm-hmm.
even other people that are better than me, like Meko, for example,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of them would struggle on the ending of that song.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, again, some of these maps, like again, we've talked about quite a few, but like in particular stuff like Sugar Song, stuff like Gokai Gokai Phantom Thief. I would personally also say Rebirth Day as well. I'm not sure if you agree, but there's definitely some weird parts about that song as well. So it's not easy to get those those crazy full combos and such, and nonetheless APs as well. So that's a question that a lot of people want to ask. Someone who's trying to get better at the game, trying to get good. Are there any like tips that you would give to someone? Like what like first of all, I guess what kind of made you improve, I think, the best or the quickest? What kind of skill or what kind of suggestion that helped you improve the fastest in order to get these APs, and what kind of tips would you share to other people who are trying to improve their game?
I'd say for improvement, a lot of it would come from self-diagnosing any deficiencies you might have. So for
Mm-hmm.
example, you notice you're hitting late a lot, you might crank up your offset or decrease the speed. Likewise, the opposite for if you're hitting too early.
Mm-hmm.
And you would maybe notice kind of notes or patterns you're missing. Like so if you're weak on slides, you might have to look at the mechanics of a slide and see if you're going too early or too late.
Mm-hmm.
uh, Mentality wise, I guess a lot of common advice in other rhythm games boils down to play more. But if you just grind mindlessly, it's not really going to help you a lot. I think the main thing is to continue being happy with how you're playing, which is hard sometimes. But I like to compare with my past performance. I'd
Mm-hmm.
be like, oh wow, the me of last year would be amazed at what I just did, even if it wasn't a perfect score or even something I'm currently impressed with.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. I've also heard that people would, for instance, record their sessions as well, right? Like, kind of record how they play a song so that it's easier for them to see exactly where they are missing particular areas of the song, and for in your case it would be for AP, but even for maybe like lower level players just trying to get the full combo, that could help as well. I imagine recording yourself and seeing how you're playing and see how you're able to improve that. I think that's also because again, right now ENdori doesn't have the fast slow counter that JPdori currently has. So there's a lot of stuff in ENdori that I think we're waiting on to help with practicing before to really get the hang of things. So.
Yeah, definitely. I think recording hand cam is one of the best things you can do to self-diagnose your problems. Of course, not everybody has a second device or a good quality camera to record at high frame rate. So it could be a little bit trickier for some people. And also if you screen record, if your device is a little bit older, it might lag and throw off your actual performance. But
Mm-hmm.
yes, it is a very useful way to do it.
Yeah, I remember doing that screen record. I would actually screen record to sort of help myself out and look at it, be like, okay, well, I noticed that this is the part where I keep dropping the combo. Back then, I wasn't that good, so I was all about full combo. So I would screen record and try to see where that happens. But my device was really old. I think it was like a 2013 iPad. So
Wow.
it was pretty bad. I decided to whale and get a better iPad just so I could get better at Bang Dream.
Good choice.
Yep. It's interesting choice of not really spending too much in the game, but spending on the actual device. So improves my quality of life. So it's pretty funny. Um, again, you already talked about, some songs where you're kind of like wondering and whether or not you'll be able to do continue that full AP when the song comes out, because there's a couple of nasty killer songs that are coming up in JPdori, that are in JPdori, that will be in ENdori very soon. Most notably, Cessna Trip special difficulty, and I guess the newest special difficulty, Hell or Hell, level 30 as well. Um, is there a particular song, maybe other than these two, that you're also maybe a bit worried about? And what are you gonna do to try and prepare for that before it comes to the ENdori?
To be honest, I'm pretty much worried about most of the new special songs.
Hmm.
For me personally, my weakness is not flicking hard enough. Because
Hmm.
for those who aren't aware, the special songs in JP have these new directional flicks, so they can have one, two, or three arrows, and the three arrow ones require you to flick at least 15% of your screen, I think. So so for some iPad players, if they tend to do little flicks to optimize their movements, it can be really hard for them to get used to hitting the three arrow flicks.
Hmm. Yeah. I actually kind of reminded me of that. I did remember that there were left and right flicks instead of the any multi-directional flick. But I that you did remind me that there are layers of flicks as well. You have to flick longer or flick shorter depending on that. So that's gonna be pretty crazy. Would Sets in the Trip be like the one that you are most worried about, or is it Hell or Hell or any other song in
Yeah, it's
particular?
definitely sets you on a trip because on top of the flicks being difficult, you also have to memorize the directions in the chorus. Hello
Mm-hmm.
Hell is physically very hard, but it's not very hard to memorize, I think.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You just mentioned a really interesting tip as well, right? Memorizing the beat map. I think that's also a skill that really helps in terms of being able to get better at the game. And really, the easiest way to memorize a beat map is to play it more and just play more. If you memorize a beat map, you understand what is coming up and you know what's coming up next, so you're not going to panic and always react to it. You know what's going to come up, and of course makes things a lot easier to improve and get better at the game. So I think that's another point that I just want to mention as well. That as someone who's I wouldn't say necessarily as good, but this is what I found that really helped in terms of improving my game as well.
Yeah, oh, definitely for me too. Maybe not so much in Bandery, but in other
Mm-hmm.
games such as, say, Tunic or Archaea, it's for me at least, it's pretty much a necessity to memorize part of the map or to watch a YouTube video at a quarter time speed or something.
Mm-hmm.
There's other players who are much better at sight reading than I am, like Houdini or Meko.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Last question before we kind of move on to another topic here, but I imagine though, even with these new special difficulties coming up in the game, correct me if I'm wrong, but I would like to believe that Bandery may not necessarily be the most difficult game for you. I imagine you've played quite a few other rhythm games and you find other games to be more challenging.
Yes. My current addiction would be Tune actually. I think I said Tune addict as my bio on Twitter recently.
Yeah, so again, I don't want to discourage people. Bandery is definitely a difficult game, but there are definitely some really nasty games out there. Actually, yesterday, at the time of this recording, for the studio, I was playing Lenoda, and that is a bit mind-boggling for me. I always thought that at first Mandarin was really hard, but then getting a perspective of other rhythm games, like I eventually played D4 DJ, Project Seikai, Toho Damaku Kagura, and kind of seeing the perspectives of how other rhythm games work also sort of helped me build my foundation for Bang Dream as well, and realizing, okay, well, if these are patterns that are sort of norm or standard in these games, and you just have to work with it, then you kind of think of perspectives as how to handle it. And I come back to Bang Dream and like, oh well, okay, that's a new perspective I never thought of, and I was able to sort of kind of overcome some obstacles through that as well. I'm not sure if you have the same feeling, like rhythm, your experience with and skill in other rhythm games being able to sort of transfer within each other to kind of help you get better.
Yeah, I think getting good at one or two vertical scrolling rhythm games, so let's say you get good at ENdori or Sekai, makes it a lot easier to get good at other similar kinds of games as well. Of course, it doesn't transfer over in terms of reading for other very different games. So like Lenoda, for example, as you mentioned, me personally, I actually have a lot of trouble reading circular playfields. So I got absolutely destroyed when I tried Lenoda and Mai before.
Yeah, I remember playing My as well, IRL, like before, of course, before the pandemic happened. I was playing a bit of My. I was absolutely pummeled. It was brutal. It was brutal. You're not gonna see me posting my videos on Twitter. That's not gonna be from me. Yeah. So let's switch topics here, White Whale. And the next thing I want to talk about is song tier, because it's a very interesting topic. It's very different from usual tiering, and to be honest, I've only recently started learning about song tiering myself, and learning from other people. For yourself, again, I'm just gonna reiterate again. You have 4 top 1 titles in Byoshi wa Kamu, Start, Wonderline Girl, and Asuyozura, as well as a second place in Scenario of Love, and then a couple of top 10s as well. Before we talk about these achievements, tell me a little bit more about how you got into song tiering. Like, so what sort of made you, what sparked you to try song tiering?
Well, initially it was going over the team more than one of the songs. So, so what happened was I looked at my card pool one day, and then at the moment, at that time, Cool Parade was the most powerful team on JP. So I'm like, oh hey, maybe I'll build Cool Parade just for the heck of it. I think at that point they only had one song ranking with that team, which was Start. Then later on, they released the challenge live with Asu, no Yozora, Wonderland Girl, and I Know Scenario. So that was just a bonus for me. But yeah, pretty much in around the end of 2019, I was already targeting, like I was already aiming for gachas to go for to build that team.
Okay, so basically, even when you first started get into the game, you were already kind of thinking, okay, well, I have the skill, so I'm gonna try and go for song tiering, and then you started preparing for it, right?
Well, not really. I think it was a long path from here because I started a year before that too, and also on a crappy device. It was only it was probably about a couple months after I got my new phone that I realized I could probably compete on song tiering, with the ability to AP and everything. And funny fact, actually, I bought my iPad so I could song tier better because you could hit more precisely with 120 hertz on your iPad.
For sure, definitely. So, maybe some tips for players if you want to get good. Get an iPad. Not sponsored by Apple, by the way. So like, what what preparations do you need to do when you are going to prepare a song tier? Because again, you mentioned how sometimes they're kind of like lumped together too, right? So like like multiple songs are sort of lumped in the same event, and you're kind of preparing for all of them. So what goes into preparing for song tiering? You mentioned of course the cards that you have to prepare, which that could be even done maybe like months in advance, right? Getting the optimal card maybe months in advance, because that's when the gacha is. What other things you have to do to prepare for song tiering?
Well, gacha aside, I'd say, of course, know the song first because I find if I don't know the song well enough, it'll take maybe 2 or 3 times as long to learn the ops. So my technique, at least, is to relate the offsets to the song musically. So It really depends on the BPM of the song. But for example, in Byoshin no Kamu,
Mm-hmm.
which is 130 BPM, I believe, pretty much if you offset exactly by a 16th note and then you go a little bit later, that's the 6.5 frame offset you need or something like that. So so for me, I would experiment by shifting notes up and down in the song optimizer and figuring out how many frames are each subdivision of music. So that way you can make. I think that's what Ketan said one time too. Like he
Mm-hmm.
he invents the rhythms in his head when he does ops. So yeah, first you
Mm-hmm.
would know the song well, so you can distort the rhythm yourself later. You know the song and the placements of the notes. Then you kind of memorize where the skill notes start and end, so they don't cast you off guard.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's
Mm-hmm.
just grinding, mindless grinding. This is why people don't like song hearing, by the way.
Yeah, yeah. Solitaire could also be quite expensive, I imagine, because it's not really necessarily playing so much in the event that's giving you a lot of expenses. It's all the preparation you do before, which could get quite hefty with the gacha, and of course a lot of mindless playing and preparation in the um, earlier. You mentioned a word, ops, and I just want to for those who may not be too aware, for our viewers, ops is short for optimizations, and basically optimizations are where you sort of hit a particular skill note, because a skill note will sort of activate a skill and give a score bonus. Now, optimization is a scenario where you either hit a skill note at a different timing than what it usually should be for a perfect note. And the reason why you do that is that you're going to slightly shift the period of time that the skill is active for, either hitting it early or hitting it late, and that could possibly add more notes into that skill window, which means you will increase your score. So optimization is pretty key. And to be honest, there's a couple of people asked this, and myself included. I look at the optimization trackers on BestStory and all these resources, and White Whale. I'll be honest, I have no idea what's going on. How do you read an optimization chart? So just like for someone who's like kind of new, just maybe give a gist, like the basic gist of how would you read an optimization chart, and maybe if there's one song you remember in particular, you could give an example of that chart, and I'll have a graphic, so you'll have reference.
Sure. I can show you the graphics later, but for
Yeah.
now I'll just go over. Let's say we can for example have the final proc of Byoshin no Kami, so like the final encore skill
Mm-hmm.
activation.
Mm-hmm.
So when the algorithm adjusts your notes, it moves the opaque notes up or down based on where you want it to be. And then there's a hollow, or kind of like a translucent note where the original position is.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of you don't really hit the translucent note. You would hit where the opaque note is. And what I do personally is try to, as I mentioned earlier, relate it to the rhythm of the song. So you look at the grid lines to get an idea of how many quarter beats or something is offset from the original beat. To get an idea of how late you have to hit it or how early you have to hit it.
Mm-hmm.
And pretty much, if the note is higher up on the song chart than its translucent counterpart, that means you hit it late. If it's lower down than its translucent counterpart, that means you hit it early.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. So again, in some scenarios, I imagine, in some scenarios, you don't necessarily have to optimize it. You could just kind of, in some scenarios, hitting it perfect, hitting it late or early, it's like doesn't matter too much. But in other scenarios, like as you mentioned, the Oshinokamu final skill note, I think in this case is it a late hit.
Hmm.
It's a late hit. Okay, so it's a late
Yeah.
hit, which means that you have to hit it late in order to catch more notes near the end period of the window. And of course, that does mean most likely you're going to get a great instead of a perfect. But in that case, that does actually increase your score. So it's definitely pretty interesting. So sometimes AP is not the solution for getting the best score. Um, is there anything else you want to add to optimization and getting people to get used to it?
Sure. Uh, well, for I think if you can afford to download JP, that's a very good thing to do.
Hmm.
Although this will change in the near future because you get the rewind feature in EN.
Hmm.
But what a lot of song tiers will do is they will learn one proc at a time, and pretty much they'll play it in rehearsal mode and spam the same skill activation like 10, 20, maybe even 50 times until they
Hmm.
can get used to how to time it.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. And again, ENdori is a little behind, but we will hopefully get the rewind fast forward function in rehearsal mode soon. I personally need it to full combo full Firebird as well, but yeah, that's something that that'll definitely help for sure. So again, optimization's not easy, but I'm sure if you want to learn more about optimizations, feel free to let us know, or join the Discord, speak with our special guests, White Whale, and there's a lot of people in the community as well, that are very willing to help and assist you if you have any questions
Yes,
about that.
there's a lot of people that are better than me, and there's a lot of people with different techniques. So feel free to ask around.
For sure, for sure. I know a lot of people have some very unique kind of techniques or unique kind of sort of ways they tackle song tier. Like for instance, some people may choose to um, forego, like some people like to have skill window, for instance, open and see what kind of skill they're getting, and if it's not the correct order, because again, it's also there's an RNG factor as well, where the skill order matters in terms of getting the best score possible. So some people like to have skill window open so that if they don't see the optimal order, they just kind of throw it away, throw away that run and try again. But other people, they like to turn it off because it gives them too much nerve. So you just might as well just play and try and play the best you can every time. I'm not sure which boat are you in personally.
I would be in the skill window both, but I think that's mostly iPad players. A lot of phone players would just turn off the skill window because
Mm-hmm.
it messes with their field of vision.
For sure, for sure, for sure. We'll talk about the community in a little bit, but before I do that, I just want to quickly ask because you have experience in both song tiering and event tiering. Um, which one would you consider to be more difficult, the event tiering or song tiering?
This is difficult based on based on the skill set. But for me personally, I am a very sleepy person. I like to get
Mm.
my at least 9 hours of sleep a day. So hands down for me, it's very easy. Event tiering is a lot harder, and song tiering is easier. But
Uh-huh.
if you have a lot better stamina than me, which is really easy to get, and if you don't like grinding the same song. Wait, no, you do that in event hearing anyway. But if you don't like grinding the same song and having to try hard it for
Hmm.
hours on end, then event hearing is probably easier.
Hmm. Yeah, it's very interesting. Again, everyone's perspectives on tiering is much different. I imagine your event tiering was quite difficult. It definitely uses a much different sort of set of skills and traits to do well in it. So it's definitely understandable there. Um, in terms of the song tiering, though, like although for the most part you've gotten a lot of titles, was there a particular song title where you're like, wow, that was a challenge? I'm glad I ended up getting that title.
Oh, definitely. I have two actually, which are the two I wear the most on my profile.
Mm-hmm.
So the first one would be Start because it's the first song title I had.
Mm-hmm.
That one's notable because I had to fight a very scary song tier by the name of Noelle on my first attempt at song tiering.
Mm-hmm.
That one, I'm not sure if you heard, but of Noelle, but she has many song titles.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure how many song T ones she has, but it's a lot. But yeah, pretty much that was the struggle, and I had to learn. I had to learn how to hit early, how to hit late. At that point, I didn't have my technique yet for knowing how early or how late to hit. And on top of that, I had to even have a chance at beating her. I had to use 3 fingers at a certain section,
Wow.
which was quite ridiculous. But yeah, I got it in the end. I believe, I think I got the score in the last 8 hours of the event, so it was really nerve wracking.
Yeah, you never know, or you might get voted, right? Like last 8 hours, but last 8 hours is pretty solid. Like wow, you only have 8 hours to try and beat it. So
Yeah, song
um,
tiering is psychologically scary too. It's not like event tiering where you have the consistent pace. All of a sudden someone could just shoot up from top 3 to top 1 if they wanted to.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, or not even maybe not even the leaderboards. You never know, right? They
Yeah,
might not
you could
even be
just
in
pull the
top 10.
optimal team in the last 8 hours.
Yeah. So you mentioned that one. You said mentioned another one, right? What was the other one?
Oh, the other one would be Byoshin no Kamu. That
Mm,
one's a different case because rather than it being an example of my like learning from zero, it's an example of experience, I guess. Because with this one, I knew pretty early on that I could build a team for it. So what I did was grind really hard in JP rehearsal mode,
mhm.
and still, it still wasn't enough because it's very, very difficult. So the for Byoshin no Kamu, it's a very special song because the BPM of the song makes it so that you have to hit half frame precision for certain optimizations to count. So that's 8 milliseconds, very, very small.
Wow.
So even if you play 100 times, you might get it once or twice. If you're really good at getting it consistently, you could get it, I don't know, maybe 1 in 10 times. But that's the pipe dream for most of us, including me.
Yeah. You know it's really interesting hearing these perspectives of like song tiering and such because if someone's a bit more familiar with other video games, like for instance you're doing speed runs and you have to do like these very particular strats and such, and sometimes like particular strats may require like 1 frame or 2 frames of execution, and that could basically make or break a particular run. And to be honest, it's kind of hard at first for me to think that that's kind of like a similar case in Bang Dream, but yeah, it really is. Sometimes it is a execution thing. It's an execution barrier. You may only have, being off by a frame or two could really make a difference between getting it or not. So it is quite interesting there. So, but again, big congrats on your achievements. 4 top 1 titles is definitely not something to slouch at, and I'm not sure if that's something you're satisfied with, or you're kind of thinking of more song titles in the future.
Oh, well, not really, I guess. Pretty much I got screwed very hard recently in the gacha,
Oh,
so I'm not sure when I'll come back, but there's a possibility. Let's just put it that way.
all right. Well,
Stay tuned.
yeah. Well, if you do end up doing another song tier, best of luck. And hopefully there'll be some. Maybe the gacha gods will bless you soon, so that you'll be able to song tier again. A reminder that all special guests featured in the podcast can be found in the Unga Academy Discord server. You could join a passionate community who loves Bang Dream and many other interests. We have weekly community events, and of course, for Filler Nation members, this is your opportunity to listen to the podcast live when they are being recorded. So check it out. Links are all in the description below, and we hope to see you there. So you've talked about the community a bit. We've talked with our previous special guest Houdini. We talked a little bit about the QEP group, where people come in and work together to get a full quintuple all perfect. So all 5 people in the same room getting all perfect. So I'm sure you're in a very big community of really, really excellent players in Bang Dream. So how did you first get into that?
Good question, because I can't really remember myself. I think it started more as acknowledgement, I guess you could put it
Mhm.
that way. Like a lot of good players being aware of other good players and offering advice to people who are quickly improving so that they can be as good as like at that skill level. Just so you can recruit them into quintuple all perfect. Um, for me, I think it's very similar actually to the way people get acquainted in the tiering community. Pretty much, you meet people, have fun, maybe get invited to some servers and talk with others to get, be more well known and to know others better. I think it's yeah, it's very similar to high tiering pretty much.
Mhm.
Except instead of you're flexing your titles, you're flexing your APs.
Flexing your ability to play the game quite well. So it's very good that you're, again, regardless, it's great to see a great community of those players that are, all trying to support each other and help each other and really trying to get good at the game, because again, that's something I guess a lot of you guys are quite passionate about. You mentioned a few very notable names, Noel being one of them for sure. I also heard from Houdini as well that Rowlet is also very notable, and also a couple of guests as well. They mentioned Rowlet and Noel are like, I think, the big two when it comes to Solitaire, and of course Payton as well. Never forget about him as well. That's like a big group of like those big Solitaires. So when you like think of these big song tier players and you think that maybe like you will be competing against them for that title, does that give you a bit of nerves, or does that kind of motivate you to be like, I want to beat them?
Oh, definitely motivation. There was one event where I had to compete against both Noel and Rowlet, I think. But I think I went a bit too far, because what happened in that event was Rowlet was busy, I believe, and Noel was busy tiering T10 on the event. But in that event, I was very, very prepared to have to fight tooth and nail for whatever I was going for.
Yeah, so it's really interesting. Again, this community that's all very good at the game and all trying to support each other. But of course, when push comes to shove, there are going to be some competition, and you got to do what you got to do to beat your fellow competitors through through skill. Are there any particular people in this community, the QAP community, or maybe even outside of it, where you would consider them to be like either like an inspiration, to inspire you to get better at a game, or are there other people that you find to be some of your biggest rivals in the community?
When it comes to the EN community, I think more or less every song tier would be inspired by K10. I mean, the dude's insane. He's got what, like 30 song top ones by now.
Yeah.
But yes, K10 was definitely an inspiration, and I did look to him for some advice. There's one that maybe less people know about. I think Lith or Lyth, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, but he's very knowledgeable in terms of optimization science. So oftentimes people will have an idea, or he'll have an idea about how to, maybe something that even BestDori's optimization calculator doesn't pick up, and then he can execute it and prove that it's possible to do it. So I think in terms of knowledge about the little quirks of the game engine, he's definitely the most knowledgeable.
That's really interesting. Again, the more I hear like stuff like this, the more I bring parallels back into other things. Like again, I watch videos of people speed running, and there's the people who actually do the speed runs, but there's like the people behind the scenes figure out concepts, figure out ideas that could make things better. And lo and behold, you got that kind of idea in Bang Dream optimization too. So that's honestly really cool, really cool. And I guess my other question, again, I mentioned before, rivals, like anyone that you feel is like a really worthy rival in terms of like skill level and such.
If we're talking about Bandery in general, so not just volunteering,
Yeah.
My closest rivals would definitely be Houdini and Neko, I think.
Yeah.
Well, pretty much most of the, I think at this point, most of the quintuple all perfect people are rivals with each other.
Yeah.
But in terms of Bandery, Houdini has me beat in certain songs, actually, in JP especially. And then there's Rowlet, who is very, very consistent at new songs on JP as well.
Yeah.
There's also there's also Meko, but I would consider him rivals in a different game, mainly Archaea.
Yeah, again, you guys are definitely playing not just Bandery, a lot of other different games as well. So definitely understandable that everyone has their own unique skill sets, and some people are better in some games than others, and definitely you could definitely compare each other's skills in various different ways. So that's really cool to see. in terms of like, I don't know if this is in terms of like I guess the community as a whole, those in the QAP area, like if you were to make like a leaderboard, just a theoretical leaderboard, who would you think would be like, where would you slot in this said leaderboard, and who would kind of like occupy like the top spots? Just a theoretical, again, no wrong answers here. Just what
Loaded
do you think?
question. Well, I'm not sure honestly. In terms of boundary, I would of course, this is just among the people that I regularly interact with.
Yeah.
Just putting it out there.
Uh-huh.
Among the people I regularly interact with, I'd probably be, I don't know, maybe somewhere in the top five, but like shifting around very often.
Mm.
Uh, the top spot, I think, would indisputably go to Lovely, who used to be a previous moderator in the official Discord, but has since retired.
Mm.
Lovely is pretty much what happens if you take me and then you crank up every aspect of rhythm game skill by 10 times. He's been playing for a very, very long time.
Yeah. I don't know if I'll put this screenshot in the studio, but I just saw Lovely, AP, what was it, Hell or Hell, level 30 special in JPdori. It's pretty ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. So I think that's very disputable, undisputed T1 there in terms of skill. I don't know if you want to, say this, but comparing you with your biggest rivals, Who and Neko, how would you rank your skills within each other?
Probably in the middle. I feel so bad for saying that, but no, Houdini actually beats me a lot of the time on the 27s and
Mm,
some of the 28s. She's much more consistent when it comes to random songs.
fair,
I
fair.
think in the arcade leaderboard, I would be above her though.
Okay.
And for Meko, Meko is Meko. Where else are you gonna find a man with 400, almost 500 APs of Rocket Shonen?
Crazy. Absolutely nutty. Absolutely nutty. Last question. About this AP QAP business. Any goals on what you're going to QAP in the future?
Oh, definitely. We have a long, long list of songs that we want to do. But of course, time zones. I'm not sure if Houdini mentioned this in her
Yeah.
episode, but time zones are very much a pain in our side, as I would put it.
Yeah.
A lot of the time, it's just pretty much limited to Friday or Saturday for our time zone to
Yeah.
just take attempts at it. And of course, people are teachers, people have jobs and stuff. They have exams, so yeah, I don't think we're gonna get that far through our projects until possibly Christmas.
Yeah, I've heard from Houdini as well that it would be like at midnight or like 1 a.m. in our in Pacific time zone just to like start QAPing, which is a little awkward, but that's just kind of how it is with the time zones and people.
Yeah,
Yeah, so yeah, it's pretty interesting for sure.
they always get mad at my scheduling.
Is there a particular song that you're looking forward to in terms of QAPing?
Pretty much any 28. Honestly, we got very close with a couple of them, and I think it's
Okay.
doable.
Okay, for sure, for sure. All the best. Good luck. Hopefully, you'll get some more time in the future, and hopefully, you'll be able to get those QAP goals soon.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So this will sort of conclude the main section of the guest portion of the studio and this episode. But as I mentioned in the update video in the RePHIL studio, we do have some opportunities for the community to ask some questions. So some of these questions are from the Unga Academy Discord server. Again, link is in the description if you want to join. And some of our members have graciously decided to ask some questions to you, White Whale. And I'll be asking some of these questions as well to sort of wrap up the episode. Some of these questions I've already asked, so hopefully they were able to get that answer. But I will ask a few more that we haven't been asked yet. The first question. This is coming from let's see. What question should we go first? Let's start with a meme question. Um, this question is: do you have the skills to AP a song with your knuckles or feet?
Oh, what is this, Gorilla Simulator? I think I think Knuckles, yeah, I could maybe do Knuckles. I imagine I would look much like an actual gorilla pounding away at my screen like that. As for Fiat, no man, I wish. I wish. But I can't even, I tried DDR a couple of weeks back and I can't even clear level sixes, so that's your answer. I can't do feet right now.
The next question actually is a really good question because you just mentioned before how lovely was a previous mod of the official popcorn mod, but I forgot to mention that you are a popcorn mod right now. The question is, how long have you been a popcorn mod? And another question, if you don't mind sharing, is what is the weirdest thing you've ever seen someone get banned for?
Sure. So I've been a pubcord mod since I believe May 2020. So just a couple weeks before the server went official. Not related to that decision, by the way. And as for the weirdest thing, there's a lot of very meme-worthy things that have happened in pubcord. I'm trying to think of one that's particularly memorable. I mean, in recent memory, I think we publicly banned somebody for like harassing people or something. But that's very standard. It's just memorable. I think the most hilarious one was probably the Kami Hunter incident. So I can go over the story.
Yeah.
I believe this was a couple months into after I joined as a moderator, and there was this guy who was very suspicious with his screenshots and stuff. And I think the hilarious thing was how far it went. Because normally when somebody cheats, you just report them and get it over with. But on both sides, there was a lot of stuff going on. So for example, the moderators, I'm going to disclose our secret processes, but the moderators actually realized that the pixels and aspect ratios of that guy's screenshots weren't lining up, for example, and then we looked at their improvement rate and stuff, blah blah blah, and then he got banned, and then pretty much I think what makes it the weirdest thing was he came back with an alt pretending not to know what just happened, with the obviousness of three kids standing in a trench coat with a mustache. That one was pretty much hilarious for the amount of clowning one person could put on a server. I don't think I've actually seen the amount of chaos that could be in there. Pretty much even when the server went official, when people were raiding the server, I don't think I've seen that much chaos in the EN channel before.
Jeez. Well, again, for those who don't know, Pubcord is the official Bang Dream Discord server. They actually already made a post on social media earlier today at the time of this recording. So there's a lot of people there, over 30. Recently. Yeah, over 30,000 people. Crazy, but again, it's if you want to take the first step to join the community, that's definitely a place to start for sure. And of course, you get to learn other communities from there, like for instance QAP, or for instance my community as well. So very interesting experience. Obviously with a Discord server so big, you're bound to meet some interesting people, some interesting people. Here's another question. Going back to the optimizations. This question is: what's the hardest ops to hit in your opinion? And of course, your opinion doesn't have to be, it's your opinion. So, what do you think is the hardest ops?
The hardest ops is one I've never hit, actually. I think it would be anything involving slider tick delays. So the way those work are, some sliders have little lines in the middle of them, which are like intermediate notes.
Yes. And
those ones will register as perfect if you're within, I believe, a one-lane leniency on each side. So normally the big hitbox works in your favor because it makes it easier to hit the slide. But when you're trying to avoid hitting it, that's the problem. if you're sliding, let's say maybe a slide that goes lanes 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, right?
Mm.
If you want to delay the second last tick, you can't just stop at 3. You have to stop at 2. And I believe stopping a sliding motion precisely is very difficult. Also, timing the swing back in is also very difficult. For me, that's especially a weakness because I'm very bad with slide movement timing. Actually,
Mm.
that's one of my major weaknesses in most rhythm games.
See, I see. It's really interesting to see a lot of different people and their perspectives, and of course, at the end of the day, some people have very strong strengths, and other people have some weaknesses in terms of like what kind of patterns are good and what kind of patterns you're not good in. Uh, this is just sort of an extra question because I guess I just thought of it, but you mentioned sliders are kind of like your weakness. What would be considered one of your strong points? What would you say is one of your strongest assets when it comes to rhythm games or like in terms of
I
patterns?
guess probably if we're going by conventional skill sets, probably streams. So just drum rolls that move around and stuff. I'm pretty
Mm-hmm.
all right with those.
Okay.
If we're talking about unusual skill sets, I think one-handing is my strength.
I forgot to talk about that. Your one hand skill is absolutely ridiculous. I've heard who Houdini after her podcast with me shared how you one handed AP Maware, which is absolutely nutty. So crazy, absolutely crazy. I'm still trying to learn one handed. I'm getting used to it, but I'm nowhere close to APing. So I think that's a very interesting trait that you have. That's really cool, honestly, and very really amazing to have. Um, we have a few more questions here. The next question is, what is your is a very chill question. What is your favorite color?
Surprise, it's not white. Okay, now my favorite color would be blue actually. My clothes are very blue. Got blue shoes, blue shorts, t-shirts, blue everything. My room is white though.
So is your favorite character in Bang Dream uses the blue color or
Oh, surprisingly not. I actually don't really have much of a specific favorite character, but among my top ones would be Akko. As you can tell by my constant use of Akko centers in
yeah,
screenshots.
yeah.
And maybe Sayo, sometimes Tomoe.
Interesting, interesting. All right. And our final question, and this might you might want to take some time to think about this. This is more of a philosophical question. Um, if you were to live life to your fullest, what would you be doing?
I will answer this question under the assumption that I have money.
Sure, sure.
But
Let's say
sure,
you are a
if I
whale.
was okay, if I was actually the white whale, I would travel a lot. There's a lot of Asian countries I haven't been to
Mm.
that I would like to visit. I haven't touched, Europe or like South America, for example. So definitely, see the world a bit.
For sure, for sure. That's a very good answer, and especially during these times where, it's been a while since we've done a lot of traveling and such, and it's definitely something that it's very eye opening. I think like once things start kind of turning back to normal, it's going to. All the traveling and seeing other places in the world is definitely going to be a lot more, even more rewarding than it ever has been. So, yeah, so I would say that's a very good answer personally. I think that's one of the answers that I would give myself. So, we have another question from who, but I'm not going to ask that. I think
Uh,
who
Preemptively, the answer is
who
no. No,
who
you.
Houdini suspect. But White Whale, again, thank you so much for taking the time to be a part of this refill studio and being our first guest for season 2 of the studio. Do you have any other last things you want to say, or any things that we could follow to know where you are and plug your channels over?
Sure. It was a pleasure to be here. My think you can catch my Twitter and YouTube stuff in my Discord. But more importantly, sub to Phil on Twitch. Let's go.
Well, I did not tell him to say that, by the way. Totally not rigged or something I planned. But thank you. Yeah. So again, White Whale, his Twitter is on the episode. You could already see it right there. His Twitter handle. He also mentioned his YouTube, and of course, as I mentioned, all special guests in the RePHIL studio are in the Unga Academy Discord, so feel free to hop in. Links in the description, as well as we have a sort of a beta website up as well to learn more about the podcast and learn more about how you could support the podcast either through subbing on Twitch, as White Whale mentioned, or joining the YouTube membership program. As well, you can send feedback on what you see about what you like and what you don't like about the studio, and feedback. All feedback's appreciated, and you can of course suggest guests to join us for the next episode. But with that out of the way, our set has been complete. Thank you all so much for listening to the RePHIL studio. It's your host SBPhilos4, and we hope that you'll be ready for RePHIL and get your cans ready for the next set. But until then, thank you all so much for listening, and we will see you all in the next episode. Take care, everyone, and bye-bye.